This episode of The Dog Show features Colin Hayes. Colin is a professional portrait artist, specialising in people and pets. His ultimate goal is to capture your loved one's character and personality on paper or canvas, and evoke an emotional response. In the interview, we discuss his process for drawing pet portraits, how much they're worth, and how you can commission a beautiful portrait of your best friend. Colin, welcome to The Dog Show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really interested to have a chat to you today. I'm not really privy to the whole world of pet portraits and everything, and you've got a huge amount of experience in that space. So I'm interested to hear about your process and how you go about creating your beautiful works of art. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You bet.
Before we get into the nitty-gritty of pet art, which what we're going to talk about today, I want to hear a bit more about your dog. So you've got a dog of your own?
Okay. I do. I have a 10-year-old Labrador Retriever that we got as a puppy. We actually got him. We were told he was older than he was, so he was a tiny little puppy. Yeah. So he's been with us ever since. He'll be 10 next month, and he's slowing down, getting a little older, getting a little gray. But for most of his life, he's been either super rambunctious or lazy. There's no in between.
That sounds like a typical Labrador right there.
Exactly. Yeah. And very food driven. That dog, he's just constantly wanting to find something to eat.
Have you had any troubles there from a health perspective on that side of things, or?
We have to watch him pretty close. He's like a billy goat. He'll dig into the garbage and eat tissues and paper and things like that. And we've had a couple vet visits because of that. So yeah, we have to watch him pretty close with the garbage.
Yeah, I guess you have to worry about that with most breeds, but in particular Labradors, right. I think.
Yeah.
As you said, they're very food driven.
Yes.
It's probably going to be hard to come up with something because Labradors are probably the world's most popular dog, I'd say, certainly in the Western world. But is there something about maybe your dog or Labradors in general that people may not know?
Well, for one thing, I think he's half bloodhound because I can't take him for a walk without him constantly sniffing everywhere.
Right. Okay.
He's his nose, and it gets him into trouble. He actually, I took him on a walk in a big open field. This was a few years ago, and let him off leash because there's nobody around, and I lost him.
All right.
And his nose, I couldn't find. I spent 45 minutes looking for him, and finally decided to walk home. It was about 2 miles back to the house, and was going to round up my family and go back out and do a thorough search for him. And one of my kids happened to look out the window, and there he was in the front yard just sniffing away. So he found his way all the way back home. So yeah, we should have trained him to be like a drug sniffing dog or something, given him a career.
Yeah, I mean, they're so good at that. I guess the one thing as well about dogs, as much as you think that they'll stay near you or hopefully come back to home like your dog did, they are very quick. Once they go, like the four legs, you can't catch them. They're gone. So
exactly.
Okay, so let's shift energy a little bit. You've been, an artist from a very young age by the sounds of it. Do you want to give me a bit of a background on how it all started and how you started to do pet portraits?
Yeah. So I started drawing when I was probably 4 years old, which, a lot of kids do. They sit there and use crayon or pencil and draw. But I became pretty obsessed with it. And as a kid, I was really shy. So I was very comfortable just sitting at a table drawing, spending hours and hours doing that. Even in elementary school, I remember copying political cartoons out of the newspaper. And this was like back in the 70s, and Jimmy Carter was our president here in the U.S., and I got to where I could draw caricatures of him really well just by copying the cartoons. Drew a lot of dinosaurs, things like that. In high school, I did start doing some portraits, for friends, family, that kind of thing. But when I went into art professionally, I became an illustrator and did all digital-based illustration, which I still do today. And at a point, I guess it was about 4 years ago, I was just getting sick and tired of working on the computer all the time. So I started doing portraits, again, for friends, family, to see if there's any interest, because I hadn't drawn portraits in quite a while. My illustration work is not really, analog or portrait based at all. It's more how-to kind of graphics, infographics. So I started doing that, and I got more interest, and come to find out most people wanted dog portraits.
Okay,
I've drawn one cat in the last 4 years. I do a lot of people too, but primarily it's dogs. People love having their dogs drawn.
Yeah, I think you're hitting a real sweet spot at the moment. There's definitely an uptrend in, I guess, pet portraits, but also just personalized pet-related, home decor and different things like that. It's really popular at the moment.
Yeah, I've, as I got into it, of course, I searched online to find out how many people were out there doing that. And wow, I had no idea. There's so many people doing, all levels, from beginner to expert and all mediums, everything. So,
well, I guess there's a lot of, I guess, automated printing services which provide those type of things for people. But I guess the uniqueness that an artist can bring to that space and actually crafting a portrait of the animal themselves, I think is different and unique.
Yeah, I agree. And that's something that it sounds a little cliche, but I always try to capture more than just a likeness of the pet. I try to incorporate the pet spirit, I don't know, for lack of a better term, but his personality, something more than just capturing a photographic looking image of the pet. So I guess I pull it off more or less. So
yeah. Well, I've seen some of your pencil portraits and stuff like that, and they're beautiful. So I think you are pulling it off.
Thank you.
I'm interested to hear, and this is a little bit of a strange question, but I'm interested to hear, how much do you think of being an artist or being a good artist is just an innate ability that you're born with compared to what you may learn as a process? Because I know that you've done some studying in the space as well.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of nature and nurture. I think starting young, like with any ability, it gives you a big head start. But I think there is a little bit of born tendency.
I think there has to be, because I can't draw at all.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I think it's recognizing that at a young age, and then honing that skill and working on it. My dad, when I was 13, got me into a college art course, with people in their 20s.
Okay.
Funny thing about that is in college art courses, you have life drawing, nude models.
Oh, right. So yeah.
That couldn't happen when I was there because I was underage. So all the models were clothed, and I'm sure a lot of those college boys are not too thrilled having me there. but that was a key moment in developing as an artist. That's when I first realized that maybe I could do this as a career.
Yeah, well, I mean, anytime that you're getting exposed to something which I guess is beyond your years in terms of experience and learning is going to accelerate the process. But also, it probably highlights that you had that ability in the first place to be able to be in that space.
I think so. Yeah.
So you talk a bit about realism in pet portraits, and I guess you touched on it a little bit, talking about trying to get the personality of the dog or the person into your portraits. What do you mean by realism, and how does that kind of come into your process?
So I consider what I do as realistic art. I put a lot of detail in. I'm maybe a little bit anal retentive in how I do. I have trouble actually working loose. I've tried to do very loose stuff before, and it's a struggle. But there is a segment of the art world, and the pencil artist world, that does photographic work. And I mean, you can't distinguish it from a photograph. It's so realistic, so hyper realistic. And I admire that ability and that talent, but it kind of, I prefer to see a little bit of the artist's personality in the work. I like to see the pencil strokes. I like to see I like to be able to tell that it is a piece of art rather than copying a photograph.
Mm.
So while people will look at my work and tell me, "Well, it looks like a photograph," well, I appreciate the compliment, but actually, if you look, really look at it, it doesn't. I mean, it's realistic, but not photographic. So, for one thing, I don't have the patience to try to do the hyper realistic stuff anyway. But I guess that's the distinction I would make between those.
So I guess what you're saying is rather being a replica of a photograph, you're adding some character to it as well, and a little bit of your artistic touch.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So how do you go about your process? I've read a little bit about it, but I'm interested to hear how, for example, I want to get a pet portrait done of my dog. What would you do?
So I usually try to base the final portrait on a single photograph, but the more photographs that I can get, the better, because sometimes there are details that are hard to tell in one photograph that I like to see what the side view looks like or something. High resolution photos and good lighting both help a lot, because again, it's hard to draw what I can't see. I've had to wing it in fact, one of my recent portraits, the photo reference, I almost turned it down. It was challenging, and I asked the guy multiple times, "Is there any way?" Was a surprise for his girlfriend, 2 dogs. Excuse me. And I asked, "Can you sneak in and take some pictures of the dog or whatever?" He said, "No, this is what I got." So I was able to make do with what I had and sort of work around not being able to see certain things, and it turned out. So that's not ideal, but I've done it before.
So you get the photograph, and then what do you do from your perspective?
I will start with a very light, rough sketch, and for a single subject, I usually work about 9 by 12 inches. Sorry if I can't translate that immediately.
That's okay. Most people will understand that, I think.
We're antiquated here with our system. But so I will print out a photograph or have it on my tablet or something to refer to. And I always start extremely light, outline the main features of the dog. And then I'll just start gradually building up the tones. So it's very kind of slow and painstaking process, but if I rush the process, it shows.
And how long from start to finish is a pet portrait usually taking for you?
A single one averages probably 12 to 15 hours a piece.
As in actual work time?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I imagine that's not just one sitting for you, or
not usually. Yeah, I can last 2 or 3 hours at a time, and I have to take a break. And
so most of the time, if someone commissions a portrait, it probably a couple of weeks turnaround at least, or depending on how many you've got going.
It depends. Yeah, sometimes I'll have a backlog, especially coming up to Christmas season. That's when most people will decide to
get your orders in now.
Oh yeah. I try to tell people, even in the summer, up here in summertime, get on the list now, because it builds up quickly.
What's something like this worth? I mean, how much is someone paying for a personalized pet portrait?
It can vary depending on different factors. Generally, for a single, it starts at about $300 US. And again, there's sometimes it's a little bit more depending on different factors, but that's generally what a single would be. For additional subjects, of course, I work larger as there's more subjects. I usually try to stick with about 3. I'll do more if needed, but I will discount the additional subjects.
Okay.
So the base price, and then fifth, I can't remember what it was. I think it was $50 less per subject, additional subject.
And how big did you say? You said an inches amount before the portrait is?
So for a single one, it's usually 9 by 12, and
9 by 12,
I I mat those to 11 by 14 and
Okay.
send them matted in a clear plastic sleeve. And then usually for a double, it's 11 by 14. And then, in fact, I've worked as large as 20 by 30 on some commissions, which is pretty large.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fairly small investment, I think, for immortalizing your best friend.
Yeah, I try to emphasize that it's something to remember, and I say remember because sadly I do a lot of portraits of deceased pets that people want to memorialize, and it is something that they can look at for years and enjoy and appreciate.
It's a beautiful gift, I think, that would have a great impact on someone. Especially, I mean, if they're a dog lover and they love their dog, obviously.
Yeah, and most of them actually are gifts from somebody to another person. Yeah.
Cool. So, where's the best place for people to go if they want to find out more about your process and maybe check out your portfolio and see what you're doing?
Sure. ColinHayesArt.com. So that's ColinHayesArt.com. And that's got contact information, samples, portfolio, a little bit about my background, my procedure, all that kind of stuff.
And a few links to your socials, I believe, as well.
Yes. Facebook page, Instagram, all that good stuff.
Perfect. Well, I'll share all of that in the show notes anyway, so it'll be easy enough for people to click through and check it out.
Great. I appreciate it.
No worries, Colin. Well, thanks so much for sharing your process today and talking to me about dog portraits and everything. I mean, it's been quite interesting to find out, your background and how you put it all together. But I'm sure there's lots of people out there that'd love to check out what you're doing and maybe buy a portrait of their dog as a present for someone.
That would be great.
No worries, Colin. Well,
All right.
Thanks a lot again.
Thanks a lot, Will. I appreciate it.